Hey friends, you're listening to Nostalgia Nation, the audio edition. I'm John Toma, also known as that 80s dude. And in this episode, we're talking about 2016 and why younger generations are suddenly nostalgic for it. It's been 10 years and this generation wants to go back. So what's the deal with 2016? Let's rewind.
Baby, it's for something real, but the truth that they are hiding.
I knew nostalgia had officially gone mainstream when I overheard two college girls sighing about 2016 at the gym. That's right, the era of Snapchat's first augmented reality, or AR filters, and frozen sing-alongs are now considered golden oldies by people too young to rent a car. As a Gen Xer, I nearly did a spit take with my coffee. And yes, I do drink coffee at the gym, so don't judge me. But 2016, really? I'm not sure I'd completely accepted it the last few years, but nostalgia isn't just for us ever so slightly older folks anymore. It's become an all-ages pastime, and the world is finally catching up with what we Gen Xers have known all along. Eventually, everyone needs a place to escape to in their mind and reminisce about simpler days. But 2016? Open TikTok these days and you'll find teenagers romanticizing the early 2010s as if it were some distant, magical era. They're fixated on hallmarks of the time, including, Taylor Swift's Red album, One Direction mania, indie twee fashion, lo-fi Tumblr aesthetics. If you were in your 20s back then, Gen Z now envies you, though they'd never admit it. They even have a term for pining after a time you never knew. They call this anemoia, the feeling of nostalgia for a time or place you've never actually experienced. Here's the ironic twist. This Gen Z cohort spent recent years mercilessly mocking millennial cringe culture. They made fun of Harry Potter obsessions, pumpkin spice everything, cheesy inspirational wall art. Yet now, those same mockers are getting misty-eyed about the exact era millennials came of age in. The early 2010s were far from perfect, and I vividly recall the post-recession uncertainty. But to today's youth, that decade glows with a simpler, sunnier light. Why the sudden longing for the period of 2010 and 2016? Well, look what came after. The late 2010s and early 2020s haven't exactly been a relaxing stroll. This generation came of age amid financial meltdowns, political upheavals, a global pandemic, and constant climate anxiety. The internet that used to be a fun escape became a fire hose of bad news, and it still is. And somewhere around 2016, TikTok showed up and really finished the job. No wonder they're nostalgic for any period that feels more hopeful or carefree by comparison. I'm not at all suggesting we didn't have problems or that they weren't building up somehow. I'm just saying it was different. And even though this younger generation is feeling nostalgic sooner, I can't really blame them. I've even heard some Zoomers half joke that they're jealous of the 2011 college experience. That time when you were moving to a new city bright-eyed and hopeful and taking silly selfies without filters, going to parties without fear that every awkward dance would be live-streamed or memified, the next day. In hindsight, maybe the early 2010s really were a brief last era of carefree delusion, the final moment before life went fully online and every moment started being packaged as content. And I can't really disagree. For us Gen Xers, watching this youth nostalgia boom is surreal and a little satisfying. We're the original nostalgia veterans. We've been reminiscing about the 80s and 90s since the moment the calendar hit 2000. I'm pretty sure I've been to more than one 80s night where actual cassette mixtapes got pulled out. We grew up during far simpler times, and that brought us together. If you missed a TV show on Tuesday, you waited months for a rerun. We passed notes on paper in class and saved ticket stubs from concerts. To say nostalgia hits us deeply is an understatement. Our memories feel like treasures, not just endless digital files on a cloud. Fast forward to today's digital natives. Young millennials and Gen Z grew up with infinite content on demand. Their childhood photos live online. Their favorite shows and songs, their music videos never really disappeared. Of course, you've got to thank YouTube for that. You'd think having everything at their fingertips would make them immune to nostalgia. Ironically, it's done the opposite. The nostalgia cycle has sped up. Trends that used to take 20 years to come back now resurface in 10 or fewer. By the mid-2020s, Gen Z had already revived the early 2000s Y2K look and moved on to reviving 2014 Tumblr. By the mid-2020s, Gen Z had already revived the early 2000s Y2K look and moved on to reviving 2014 Tumblr vibes. When culture moves that quickly, even last decade's fads can start to feel quaint. Honestly, I find it amusing and oddly validating to see a 20-year-old get sentimental about the old days of DVDs or life before TikTok. Eventually, everybody learns what we did. The present can be exhausting, and even a flawed past can shine in hindsight. And interestingly enough, a lot of young people are now gravitating toward the tactile experiences we grew up with, as if searching for some missing authenticity in their high-tech lives. The same teens who never knew life without Wi-Fi are buying vinyl records and Polaroid cameras for the novelty of something real and physical. Some are even trying out flip phones to escape the relentless stream of notifications. When I saw my own teenager marvel at how a Polaroid snapshot develops in his hand, I recognized that spark in his eyes. It's the same one I had waiting for my 35mm photos to get developed at the drugstore. Sure, it may have been inconvenient back in the day, but the effort often made an experience feel special. Saving up to buy a new album or waiting all week for your favorite show gave those moments extra weight. Now, with entertainment available in an instant, some of that magic of anticipation is lost. Maybe that's why Gen Z is so intrigued by how we used to live slower. Waiting for something, a photo to finish printing, a new album to drop on a Tuesday, gave us a thrill that you just don't get from an immediate download. In a world where everything is always on, a little delay can feel oddly delightful. Now, I want to talk about the bridge between generations. At its core, nostalgia is comfort food for the soul, and it's ageless. We Gen Xers have long leaned on it to cope with life's stresses. Look, middle age is no picnic. Now, younger folks are discovering the same escape hatch when the present gets to be too much. Different eras, similar coping mechanisms, I think. What's truly heartwarming is how nostalgia is turning into common ground between generations. And, recently I bonded with a Gen Zer at the gym who I noticed was wearing a Bon Jovi t-shirt. And it wasn't vintage by any means, but still, it was a Bon Jovi shirt. He was thrilled to mention how he got into listening to 80s music recently on Spotify. And so I told him about how we were recording Bon Jovi songs off the radio onto a cassette. We laughed at the differences in our experiences, but the underlying joy was the same. In that moment, the age gap melted away. We were just two people geeking out over music that meant the world to us. In a world moving at warp speed, nostalgia lets everyone hit the pause button. I can't stress to you how important that is. It reminds us that no matter how different our generations are, or technologies, some feelings are universal. Every generation had its good old days. And by sharing those stories, we realize we're not so different after all. Maybe that's the silver lining of this whole nostalgia boom and why 2016 matters, even though it's just 10 years ago. It's giving us shared points of reference. We're all time travelers in our own ways. Finding a bit of unity in that collective yearning for the way it was is so important. All right, you guys, so the hotline question for today is, what do you think of when you look back at 2016? Drop it in the comments, and I can't wait to read them. And before I sign off, I want to let you know that I launched an e-zine for Nostalgia Nation that I think you're going to love. I'll drop the link in the show notes as well. The first issue, I spotlight a content creator keeping nostalgia alive, and I also have an exclusive article about why The Goonies is still better than Stranger Things. You don't want to miss it. Hey, until next time, time travelers, keep the tape rolling and stay rad.
Yeah, I know some people fighting. Baby, it's for something real. But the truth that they are hiding.